Hello and good afternoon. Welcome back to Audiotree. My name is Jason, and today is Saturday, April 26th, and we're coming at you from Chicago, Illinois. Before we get into today's show, I want to remind you to hit that subscribe button below on our channel. We here at Audiotree do a lot of work to try and find you the best artists we can have on this show, like the ones we have today. You don't want to miss out on any of it, so make sure to subscribe. As usual, you can find this session on every streaming platform imaginable, including Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, and all the rest I can't even think of right now. But without further ado, I would love to introduce all the way from Brownsville, Texas, Twin Tribes. Take it away, guys. Hey guys, this has always been something strange for us here at Audiotree. Over 88% of you who watch our videos are not subscribed to our YouTube channel, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. So could we please ask you a favor? If you like this show and you like discovering new music and you want to support us, the free and simple way to do that is to just hit the subscribe button. And our commitment to you is that if you do that, our team will continue to get the best bands we can. We'll listen to your feedback. We'll book the bands you want to see on the show, and we'll continue spreading the word of live music to the world. Thank you so much. How are you guys doing today?
Great. Thank you for having us.
That's great to hear. Yeah, I love that song. I love everything about it, from the guitar tone to the little synth accents that are going on. It reminds me, I feel like it's 1997 and I'm like in a shopping mall and I accidentally like fell asleep in there and I'm like locked overnight, but I'm having a good ass time. You know what I mean? Trying on clothes, looking up cool shit. That is the vibe I get from that song. You guys, from my understanding, are just a few days into your headlining tour here?
Yeah, that's correct. This is day 2. I believe we're going on day 3, correct?
Yeah. We just hit Kansas City, and we were, I don't even know where we were last night. That's how.
Minneapolis,
there you go.
Nice. Has the tour been off to a good start?
It's been great. We're on the road with Vandal Moon and the Chameleons.
That's
huge inspiration for us.
Yeah, that is so cool. And you guys are playing the Vampires Ball tonight?
Yes.
At the Epiphany Center, right?
Yes, correct.
Have you guys been there yet?
It's going to be our first time.
Yeah.
Oh my God. By just hearing those 2 songs and seeing the aesthetic here and knowing what that venue looks like, I can't even think of a better pairing of a style of music and a look that would fit that venue even better. You guys are going to love it. In my opinion, I think you guys will love it. So that kind of brings me to my first question here. I think the first thing I notice about Twin Tribes, and one of the things I love about your guys' band, is like the priority of aesthetics here. You know, as you can see, we got the candelabra in the back. We got a little bit of mist going here, and I love it. It's just creates such an atmosphere. When you guys started the project, was this part of the priority, was to make sure that you guys had some type of aesthetic going on with it?
Totally. From the very beginning, I remember we set up a very small merch table with 2 candles and a big piece of amethyst. So we tried to set the mood, to set the vibe, whether it's merch, using our own fog machine from the very beginning, even into programming lights now.
Yeah, I think, it's a whole kind of package that's slowly evolved to what we have right now. We've been working at it we're now on 7 years, I think, being a band. So it's gone to this point through that whole long process of constantly touring and getting what we want on stage just right.
Absolutely. And that's so cool. I feel like you have all this time, not only to hone your craft on music, but here you're learning more about the aesthetic and how to create it. Do you guys find yourselves evolving it more as you keep progressing as a band?
Totally. Not so long ago, we started incorporating our own lights, programming lights. We changed, as time came by, passed by, we changed our makeup. We did some tweaks here and there, always trying to, I guess, elevate, the performance.
Yeah, that's probably the best way to do it, right? We want every time that we're coming around to your town, every tour, that we're reaching that next level, reaching that next step, because we don't want to keep giving the same show. We don't want to the audience to get bored or whatever, because you come to a show, for us it's the whole package. Not only the music, of course it's definitely about the music, but we want that vibe, the right vibe for them.
Vibe is the perfect word to describe it. Do you guys ever find it a challenge? Because based on what you're saying, every time you come through, we're getting bigger, we're getting better. Do you guys ever feel any pressure with that as far as aesthetic or music goes, trying to kind of maybe top the last show or top the last tour?
Yeah, totally. We were actually just talking about that not so long ago, a couple of days ago. We're using a new rig for lights and trying new things live. And at some point we were like, so how are we gonna top this? We're gonna have to need a KISS stage manager to help us set up this crazy setup.
Yeah, let's get a bigger budget for the pyro kind of thing. But yeah, it definitely, but it's a good thing, right? You always want to strive to be better, to have a better show, and I think that kind of pushes us, because if not, then it's all redundant and it's just the same thing over and over, and that'll happen not only musically but just playing a show, tour after tour. We want to change it for us too.
Absolutely. I think that's the greatest mindset to have. And I think it's truly impressive to see a band take their career so seriously and not ever lighten it up as you guys keep going, I mean, it's always a challenge, I think, to come up with new ideas, but I think it's great. Seeing this presentation indicates to me that you guys very much care about every detail that goes into Twin Tribes. I think that's just super impressive in general. So I can't wait to see what you guys will come up with in the future. So I'm sure it'll be amazing. But with that being said, I love to hear a couple more songs from you guys.
Thank you. Absolutely.
All right. And that was A Cauldron of Thorns by the fantastic Twin Tribes. And right off the bat, gotta acknowledge the awesome switch up for that last song from bass to the keys. That was so cool and seamless. It was awesome. Sounded so good. So one thing I want to ask you guys, when the band was kind of in its inceptional phase, was there an idea here to have a little bit of multi-instrumentality going on?
Yeah, from the very beginning, we had a Roland JX3P from the '80s that was our main synth from that time, and Joel was switching back and forth with bass and synth from the very beginning.
Yeah, it was a learning curve. I knew a little bit of keyboard playing and. But I think being in the band really expanded my ability to play the keys, to be honest. And I think at the very beginning I was relying on Luis, hey, kind of help me out here. And but eventually, as we played together, it kind of evolved. And
That's so awesome. And that's so awesome you started with such an old piece of Roland gear. That's so cool. Did you find a learning curve when you were using that instrument?
I remember when we barely had that, purchased that synth. We used it for months until we finally found a bass synth that we really liked, and some lead patches that we really liked, and from there it was our main synth. We toured with it for 3-4 years.
Yeah, people would freak out. They're like, what are you doing with this JX3P out on the road? This should be in the studio, immaculate.
That's so cool. Do you guys still have it?
Yeah, we still have it. It's in our studio, and it was that. We used a Roland TR-707 drum machine as well on tour. People were just like, what are you guys doing? Get a case, put it back in the studio or something. But yeah, now they're retired.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
thankfully.
At least they got to live a little bit of life, right? I'd rather have,
Totally.
I think that's cooler than just sitting in a studio all day, but maybe that's just me.
Yeah.
That does bring me, though, to my next question for you guys, which is, maybe I'm a little bit uneducated on the subject, but when it comes to darkwave and gothic rock, what comes to my mind are a lot of British artists. So I'm thinking The Cure, Depeche Mode, Joy Division, things along those lines. I want to know, what was the inspiration that kind of got you guys excited to do this, especially, making music like this, being from Brownsville, Texas, for example. What inspired you guys to initially start this project?
Yeah, you mentioned it. It was, a lot of the, classic British bands, The Cure, Depeche Mode. Those were really big inspirations. And not only those legacy bands, but around 2016, 2017, it seemed like a whole wave of new artists that were inspired by, this new wave or dark wave genre that really got us wow, this is amazing, and that's what got us to start writing in this genre.
Yeah, just off the top of my head that I can think of, She Passed Away, Drab Majesty, Second Still, some of the newer bands that had come out around that time when we were first started.
Right.
Absolutely. Drab Majesty, Choir Boy are a couple of artists that I listen to a ton.
Yeah.
So I'm a little familiar with it. Love that sound, and it's just so cool. Do you guys think that this style of music is a little bit eclectic based on where you came from, or maybe your upbringing, or maybe just the environment you grew around in Texas? Because when I think of Texas, I think of a lot of Texas hip-hop, I think of a lot of Texas heavy music, but it's so cool to hear such colorful and interesting different music come from that era.
Right. I'm not sure if it's something, from where we're from. I remember listening to darkwave for the very first time in Mexico. We live in a border city, or close to a border city. So, in Mexico, I went to my first goth club, listened to, The Cure and Depeche Mode and Joy Division and all these other acts that inspired me. But I was very young, and, as a musician, we went through several projects, and you discovered different genres along the way. And it wasn't into 2016 kind of when we started writing in this genre. But I don't think that Texas is very famous for any darkwave stuff, right?
I mean, not that I can think of off the top of my head, especially from where we're at the southernmost tip of Texas. So I think the like Luis mentioned, the inspirations kind of had to come from somewhere else because it's not coming from maybe the local artists or the local scene. For me personally, the first foray into 80s music was my sister. So my older sister, she had like a briefcase of cassettes. And so, I'm just popping in different cassettes and I'm hearing the best of the 80s. And of course, Depeche Mode's on there, The Cure's on there, Bowie. And so that's really where that inspiration came from. And of course, through our travels, meeting all these new and budding artists that inspire us along the way have also played a big, significant part in our evolution.
That's so cool. And that makes total sense, especially browsing through 80s cassettes. Totally hear the vibe, obviously. I'm sure I sound a little silly saying that, but something else I hear when I listen to Twin Tribes, especially these songs you've played today, is the music to me almost sounds very cinematic in a way. I could see this music pairing well with maybe a film from the 80s or a film with a certain aesthetic. Have you guys ever experimented or thought of possibly doing like a soundtrack or something like that?
That would be amazing because a lot of our songs were inspired by films. Like Shadows was inspired by the movie The Hunger from the 80s with David Bowie. We have another song called Dark Crystal that was inspired by the movie The Dark Crystal, of course.
The best. Don't even get me started. I'll talk here for an hour and a half.
Same. Cauldron of Thorns that we just played has a lot of labyrinth in it.
Absolutely.
I love those. Jim Henson back then, say less. I'm signing on board for all of it. So
we're right there
so
with
cool.
You.
I love it. So you guys have 3 full lengths under your belt. I know there's a few remixes around there too. What would you guys say has been driving your creativity recently? I want the most like current form of Twin Tribes. What do you think is the most creative drive for you guys right now?
Wow, man, that's hard. Honestly, we have been working on several remixes recently that are going to be released soon, and we were really excited to be working on those. Aside from that, just programming lights, trying to elevate the performance. But we're getting really close to hitting the studio and working on LP 4.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that kind of comes from within, like wanting to be creatively different while still maintaining who we are as a band up to this point. And I think as we've progressed through our albums, you can kind of see, the difference from one album to the next. And I think creatively, the next one it's going to be more of that, is kind of like pushing our boundaries a little bit, experimenting with more new sounds, and once we get that time to do it, because we're always heavily touring, we kind of like have to set our own parameters, right? We don't have like a label like saying, hey, you need like this by this time. So we have to set our own parameters and say, okay, we're going to lock down for a couple of months and let's write the next one and kind of go from there.
Yeah, and that takes a lot of discipline. You know what I mean? I've definitely had similar experiences where maybe there's no label, there's no influence outside that's setting a deadline. But I think that shows a lot of restraint and a lot of discipline and just a lot of, passion for your own project if you're able to set aside that time, which I think is great. I think it's awesome to be able to focus on something like that. And that being said, I would love to hear the rest of what you guys got for us today.
Absolutely.
All right, let's do it.
The vision upon us, the memory remains. Nothing to fight. The light will cast me aside. Bring me the silence, the right for the heart. Bring me the silence.
spooky, pretty, and maybe a little moody for Twin Tribes here at Audiotree. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for watching. Thank you to the camera and audio crew today. And thank you, Twin Tribes, for the amazing performance. Lastly, I would love to thank our viewers. If you're watching this right now and you haven't hit the subscribe button, I'm already mad at you. So please, if you can and want to see more of this, hit that subscribe button, send a comment if you feel like sharing your thoughts with us, because we'd love to hear it. You can check out this session right now on every streaming platform imaginable, including Spotify and, yes, Apple Music, as well as all of the others. Once again, my name is Jason. Thank you for the time that you gave us today. We'll see you very soon.